episode of To the Show Baseball Podcast is here. This is just something I wanted to do, just kind of talking about some things I saw this past week. I've been down in Fort Myers for the last 8 days. So kind of just want to talk about everything I saw, things that happened throughout the week. Maybe it was either on the backfields or even some of the major league stuff going on the big fields. But if you're new here, obviously I did get a few follows this week. Please subscribe wherever you're listening to this, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever it is. Please subscribe, do whatever you got to do. It helps me out a ton. But I don't know the easiest way to do this, so I figured I'd probably just start from day one when I was down there and kind of just talk about some things, maybe to see what I saw on there, whatever I posted on Twitter, maybe go into a little more detail on some things that maybe I had some more information about and things like that. So without further ado, I'm going to start when I first arrived at camp. I actually arrived last Saturday. So if you're listening to this, it was actually Saturday, the 16th, the 15th of February is when my first day down there. So it was good. None of the games are going. All the guys were already down there doing things. So I'm just gonna go through some of my posts and kind of just kind of say whatever comes to mind that I kind of can know about. I have some notes written down as well. First thing I saw down there was Michael Fulmer throwing a live BP against Blake Sabol. That was one of the first things I posted. And why I found that interesting is just Michael Fulmer, man. I mean, he's coming back, and it's a guy that has had MLB success in the past, obviously in Detroit, but he was trying to get stretched out as a starter this year, but he actually told media this past week actually that he knows rotation is very crowded, even with some injuries, still crowded. So he's more than okay coming back as a reliever if that gets him up to the big leagues, which I do appreciate. And I think Michael Fulmer is going to end up being up in the bigs at some point this year. I don't know if it's the starter or a reliever, but my money would be on being reliever. My next thing on here was I got Isaiah Campbell throwing some live BP, and Isaiah Campbell is fascinating. Obviously, Red Sox fans already know him. He was on the team last year. He got an NRI this year. He's no longer on the 40-man roster, but he looks like a whole different person. Just seeing him in person, I had to kind of double take when I saw him, and I'm like, oh, that's Isaiah Campbell, the reliever from last year. He lost 20 to 25 pounds, and he looks incredible. Obviously, best shape of his life candidate. I don't know how it's going to help him as far as the body weight, but he looks a lot better. So he's trying to win a spot in the MLB bullpen. We'll see. If not, he's going to be a very good depth option in Worcester to start the year, and obviously he's got MLB time. And if he has a good start to the year in Worcester, then obviously you'll see him in Boston at some point. Garrett Whitlock, that's a guy that I got to see a lot of the first couple of days I was there. That guy is probably one of the nicer guys I've seen on the MLB team side of things. Just when it comes to the fans, obviously he does a lot with the Jimmy Fund, and he's the captain and he does all that, but a lot of the MLB guys do not walk through where the general public is at the complex down in Fort Myers. The MLB guys have a way where they can get from the locker room all the way to their fields without ever interacting with a fan face to face. Obviously there's those guardrails. They can all sign autographs and things like that, but they're not walking out in just the masses of the public because they get swarmed. And for good, they're the MLB guys. That's what everybody's there for. Garrett Whitlock did not care about that. He was out signing autographs, taking pictures. I even saw the guy giving a baseball lesson to a kid that was asking about, hey, what am I doing wrong in my motion or delivery or whatever it was? And Garrett Whitlock literally was sitting there going through his delivery with the kid, probably 10 minutes. Garrett Whitlock's incredible. Just with the fans, I feel like a lot of fans love him too. He was signing for at least 30 to 40 minutes, taking pictures, doing, like I just said, pitching lessons. And he was doing it all outside in where the public was. So that was very cool. And very cool of Garrett Whitlock. He was probably the only major league guy I saw that was walking through with the rest of the crowds the entire week. No other major league guy. You wouldn't see an Alex Bregman doing that. You wouldn't see a Trevor Story. You wouldn't see any of those other guys doing it. Garrett Whitlock did, and I applaud him for that. All right, moving on to the minor league side of things here. Nazan Zanatello. I knew Nazan was an athletic guy, and he's a St. Louis guy, which I respect. Obviously, I grew up in St. Louis, so I always have had a soft spot for Nazan. But he looked. I don't know if the right word is leaner because he's always been a smaller guy. He's always been a super athletic guy, but he just looked better. I don't know if that's a good way to put it, but he just simply looked better. And he noticed, he notably said that he took a Pilates class over the offseason in St. Louis. First time he's ever done that. And he credited Pilates to how he feels incredible right now. Obviously, he's coming off of a 2024 that was pretty tough for him. Obviously, he was 18 years old, away from home for the first time there in Low A, Salem. But I have a good feeling that Nazan's going to figure it out. He's too good of an athlete to do it, too good of a hitter. Him in high school was just too, I don't know, just like not, it was a lot better than what we saw last year. Obviously, he struck out quite a bit, but I have a lot of faith that Nazan Zanatel is going to turn it around in 2025, and maybe Pilates is the reason for that. All right, I had some notes just from my day one around there, from talking to some guys. Obviously some of the minor league guys pass you around, and so one of our good pals of the show, Taylor Broadway, he's been out with Tommy John since 2023. It's been a while since we've seen him on the mound. He's expecting to come back into game action here early in 25. So I am interested to see what Broadway gives. Obviously, he made it all the way up to AAA Worcester in 2023 before having the injury and going out for the next year and a half. So we didn't see him at all last year. Looking forward to seeing him get back on the mound. Obviously, there'll be some rehab outings, and I would assume probably starting out in Portland, just see what you got before you get up to AAA again. Wyatt Olds, he was beefed up a little bit. He was in AAA Worcester in the year last year. He said he gained about 10 pounds of muscle over the offseason, so he's also in the best shape of his life candidate. Christopher Troy, which I will note about this later on in the show about an update on him, but he had mentioned he tweaked a few things throughout the offseason, try to get his velocity back up. He was flashing 98, 99 a couple years ago. Something happened in 2024, just wasn't the same Christopher Troy that we saw. And, he kind of struggled a little bit, was working through some things, but he said over the offseason, he tweaked some things. So to get that velocity back up. So we'll see where that's at coming in. I do have an update on that a little later on. A little weirder story here. Connor Steinball, he was one of the Arizona Fall League guys for the Red Sox, and he's a pitcher. They signed him last year, and he had a case of salmonella when he was down in Arizona. I'm not sure how that happens. None of his roommates got it. Nobody else got it, apparently, in the entire Fall League, and all the guys he was eating with all the time, nobody got it. He said he got a case of salmonella, and he dropped 19 pounds just down there in the AFL. He was pitching pretty well, and I think he had 4 or 5 appearances, pitched pretty well, and then got salmonella, lost 19 pounds. So I think he was kind of a little slower getting built back up. Obviously, got to get that weight back on and, get into game action again. So I wouldn't be too surprised if he gets held back a couple weeks there in the complex, as he might ramp up a little slower than some of the other guys. Conrad Kaysen, one of my more intriguing guys in the system. He's obviously a two-way player for the Red Sox. He got drafted this past season as a guy who is going to do both. And he spent time with the players, or the position players and the pitchers that first day I was there, which I thought was cool. He was warming up in the outfield with all the pitchers, did some drills, went over to the hitting side of things and worked in the field as well with some of the infielders. And I don't know, I kept my eye on it all week. So I do have more notes on that as well as the week progresses. And that first day I was asked for my autograph, which was very, very, very interesting. And I'm very happy Taylor Broadway was right next to me for that one. Otherwise, I don't expect anybody to believe that. So that was like my first day. Pretty eventful. Something that I wasn't too familiar with on even what was going to happen. I hung out a lot on the minor league side. Obviously, all the crowds hung out on the major league side. So I got a little more as the week went on the minor league side. So I'm going to shoot to day 2 when I was down there. First things first, I was watching the infielders take grounders. There was Blaze Jordan, Antonio Anderson, Yulien Cespedes, among others. One guy I was interested, obviously, was Yulien Cespedes, who obviously had an injury to end 2024. And Antonio Anderson, too, is another guy that, just like Nazan down in Low A, He was 18 years old, away from home for the first time, struggled mightily. I would expect him to kind of rebound a little bit. I think he's too gifted of an athlete to struggle that hard again. And Blaze Jordan, guy that was struck by injuries, bad luck injuries in 2024. I just want to see a healthy Blaze all year. If I can see a healthy Blaze stay in his rhythm, not have to deal with a freak injury where he gets hit in the face or breaks a hand trying to swing a bat, whatever it is. I want to see a full healthy season of Blaze Jordan. He seems like he's in good spirits right now. I'm all in. I'm buying some Blaze Jordan stock in 25. All right. So one of the first draft picks of 2024 that I got to see was Devin Fitrell. He was a 10th round pick by the Red Sox this past year. I got to see him throw off the mound. He didn't make his org debut last year. He was dealing with a shoulder injury. He looked good he didn't throw a live BP. He was just throwing off the mound, no hitters or anything. But it's encouraging to see the lefty, obviously a guy that they're pretty high on. He's out of Vanderbilt. Obviously, he had a good career in college going to Vanderbilt. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I don't know if he'll start in Salem, Greenville, whatever it is, but I'm excited to see just another lefty that could end up moving up pretty quickly in 25. Moving on to the major league side of things that day, something that got a lot of talk. I got to see Alex Bregman at third base, and he was taking grounders next to Trevor Story. And obviously that got a lot of attention throughout the week, as probably everybody that's watching this knows about. Bregman being at third all week, or another guy that I will mention later on in this episode. But it was cool to just see Bregman doing his thing at third, turning some plays with Trevor Story at shortstop. And, obviously some gold gloves between the two of those guys in the left side of the infield on that day. Next up, I was watching Marcelo Meyer take a bunch of fielding drills, which was good. Obviously, the injury cut his season short, as you all know, last year. So just seeing him healthy out there, just seeing him just have a normal spring training as an NRI, a guy that, obviously has a lot of eyeballs on. So I'll talk about him a little later on in this episode. Next up, I got another. We're going back to the minor league side. I'm a little all over the place, but I'm just going in the order that I posted it. So you guys got to bear with me here. I got another draft pick of the 2024 class, Stephen Brooks. He's a guy that I think might be a little under the radar, but he didn't make his debut last year. And he's a guy that I heard Brian Abraham actually on the broadcast. And whatever day you're listening to it, it was the day that they played the Blue Jays at JetBlue. Brian Abraham specifically noted Stephen Brooks as being a guy that he wants to see how he does to start off 2025. And I don't know, when I hear something from Abe's, I'm always kind of like, okay, I'm going to make a note of that, because he mentioned some other guys as well. But Stephen Brooks was a guy who was their 11th round pick this year. And Abe's made sure to mention his name today when he was asked about, hey, who's a guy? I think Bradfo asked him, who's a guy that's going to kind of, who should we be watching this year? And he said Stephen Brooks. So look out for him. He's a pitcher, and he's yet to make his org debut. So 2025 will be his first year in the system. And Brian Abraham said to look out for him. I'm going to look out for him. So next up, I saw Alex Pinellas taking some BP. Alex Pinellas, man. Obviously, if you listen to some of this podcast, Alex Pinellas was our very last episode that we recorded. And I find Alex Pinellas fascinating. Obviously, he's been in Portland the last 2 years. So, he's ready for AAA. He got up to Worcester right at the end of the year, maybe got into a couple games. But he's more than ready. He's still young for even the AAA level, which I sometimes forget. But it seems like he's been in our system forever. He obviously came over in the trade a long time ago now, it feels like, with the Hunter Renfroe trade. But, yeah, Alex Pinellas, I feel like he's going to end up getting a starting spot in Worcester at some point this year. He's projected right now just on their bench to start the year, but obviously first base is kind of open right now with Bobby Dahlbeck being gone. So I would expect a lot of Alex Pinellas at first base to start the year. Obviously, maybe switching in and out with like Blake Sabol and maybe a couple other guys there, and Abraham Toro will probably see some time at first base as well. But I would definitely expect to see a lot of Alex Pinellas in the Worcester lineup to start the year. All right, moving on. I got to watch a Richard Fitts live BP, which I have a note about this just in a second, but I saw him face off against Ceddanne Rafaela, Jarren Duran, and Rob Refsnyder, and he looked good. And it was one of the best live BPs I probably saw all week. Just the velocity was there, the stuff was there, and he was facing obviously MLB pitchers or MLB batters with Jaron and the rest of the regulars there, and he was blowing everybody away. And very, very impressive to watch him do his thing there. I have more on that here in a second whenever I do the roundup of the day. Moving back to the minor league side again, I did get to see seventh round pick from 24, Will Turner, take some BP. Now, what's funny about Turner as well, he looked noticeably bigger on the bottom half, though. Like, it looked like he added some good weight, like in his core, in his legs. Like, I don't know what area to even call it, but he just looked better. I'm not going to say thicker, but he just looked bigger. He looked stronger. He was a guy too that was projected to be at one point, a top pick in the MLB draft. Kind of slipped a little bit after having a little bit of a struggle his last year at South Alabama. But I had him on this podcast too over the offseason, and he kind of mentioned that he may have found something in his swing, and he thinks that he's going to turn a corner a little bit. And he got a little taste of it in Greenville, but I wouldn't really look at his numbers or anything as what to expect from him. So I think he's going to have a pretty big 25. I think he's going to look a lot better than he did in 2024, even in college. And I have a lot of high stock in Will Turner. I would buy some stock there. And he said once he does get up to Fenway Park, he will do the Pirates of the Caribbean theme song as his walk-up song, which is incredible, by the way. All right, so keep going on the minor league side. A name that some Red Sox fans might be very familiar with, Jeremy Woo Yelland. He was throwing a live BP, and what's fascinating about this is he's actually heading off to go pitch for China in the WBC qualifiers. And this is coming after not really staying too healthy over his Red Sox tenure. He's got the stuff. He was a top 5 round pick years ago at this point. It seems like he's been around for 10 years now, but he's going off to pitch for China in the WBC, which I think there's about 4 games that they have to play, and hopefully he'll get into one. So I'm looking forward to seeing him get in there and see what he can do. Obviously, the arm's there, the talent's there. He just got to stay healthy for a year. And we haven't really seen that since he's joined the York. Had to do that. I was struggling there for a second. So I did see pitching coach Dan DeLucia throughout that day. And, Quinn Priester is a guy that's gotten a lot of, I guess, spotlight this offseason. Obviously came over in the trade for Nick York last summer, actually. And he kind of noticed that, Quinn Priester's one of his main things was adding velocity. And one way to do that as well is to add a little bit of size. Quinn was one of those, thinner guys. He was kind of like a stick out there a little bit. I guess it was a good way to describe it. His legs looked real small. His arms kind of looked small. But he went into the offseason and he gained 15 to 20 pounds. And I think that's only going to help him. They obviously attacked his velocity last season. He came over in the trade. He was throwing 92 his first start. They had him up to 97 by the end of the season there in Worcester. So I'm expecting a huge year out of Quinn Priester. That's the guy's stock that I'm buying probably the most in the entire system. So that was always encouraging on him. Obviously, Dan DeLucia is working with Quinn every day. He's the pitching coach there in Worcester. So I'm expecting a big year out of Quinn Priester. I am struggling over here with the throat. All right, so moving back to the minor league side. A guy that I found fascinating to watch on the mound, Triner O'Donnell. If you're not familiar with Triner O'Donnell, you should be now. He is listed at 6'8", 250. I just tweeted out simply, I think it's safe to say he is the most intimidating figures on the mound in the organization. When he stood next to me just off the field and I'm just looking up at him like this, he's got a big old burly red beard. He's got long hair out the back and he's 6'8", 250. How can you not just be kind of amazed by that? I don't know. I like Turner. I think he's a guy that, kind of slept on a little bit. He obviously spent the whole year in Salem in 2024. He should start the year in Greenville out of the bullpen. One thing with him, too, that I would look at is, he didn't really have a role last year. He was bouncing all over the place. He was kind of like in one of those, He would start some days, he would come out of the bullpen some days. He never got to have a consistent role. And for a pitcher in professional baseball, I feel like it's very important to try to get into a routine. I feel like they're very routine oriented. So I'm hoping for Trenner to get settled into one position this year, whether it's the bullpen, starter, whatever it is. Let him go through a whole season like that, get familiar with it, get comfortable with it, and see what he can do. I guarantee it's probably going to be a good season if that's the case. All right, so moving on to the 2024 draft class again. I got to see Brandon Neely throw a long live AB against Mikey Romero. And Brandon Neely kind of excites me a little bit. You know, he was their third round pick by the Red Sox in 2024. And he served as Florida's closer, which, if you know anything about SEC baseball, it's the best conference in the world. And I think he has very intriguing stuff. Obviously, he had a lot of success in the best baseball conference. And they're likely stretching him out as a starter in 25. So I am very, very, very curious how he does as a starter, because obviously the stuff's there. You know, he can move back to the bullpen if needed. But if he can do that as a starter, I'd look out for Brandon Neely in 25. Not sure where he's going to start, or whether it's Salem, Greenville, whatever it is, but I'd look out for him. And I just some of my notes throughout the day. You know, I have more notes about Connolly Early later, but you know, he's impressed a lot of guys in the Red Sox org, whether it's development staff, coaches, whoever. Connolly Early is a name you need to also take some stock in. We'll talk about that. Turner O'Donnell's been debuting a ton of pitches. He threw the gyro that day at 88. He's working on a sweeper, just many other things. I got a lot of questions about Noah Song. He's still alive, still there, still rehabbing, coming back from Tommy John. There's really nothing else to add on the Noah Song. I even took a picture of him to show people the proof of life. He's still there. Let's see here. Shane Drohan is another interesting name. You know, I did see him throw some live BP to some of the AAA and AA hitters. And obviously, we already saw Drohan in a game this weekend. And I think he's a forgotten about guy. I think the expectations aren't really there anymore. He used to be a top prospect in the system, and now he's kind of one of those like afterthoughts, it seems like, which might not be fair. Obviously, he was a Rule 5 pick by the White Sox and had that weird season full of injuries and ended up getting returned eventually. But, you know, he's a guy that he's not a guy that should be forgotten about. You know, he's a lefty. Maybe a switch to the bullpen could help him get up to the majors, but he's got the talent. Obviously, he was a top 5 pick in the draft, or top 5 round pick in the draft. And, you know, the White Sox saw something they liked for him to potentially be an MLB contributor. Just didn't work out that year. Some injuries happened. Some other things happened. And, I don't know. He should start the year in Worcester, and you never know. Lefty that can strike some guys out. Never a bad thing. Let's. I also got a nice video of a 4th round pick, Zach Earhart, obviously the brother of Drew Earhart in the system. He's another guy that should have a starting spot in Greenville to start the year. I'd be looking out for him as well. Got a lot of video of Marcelo Meyer doing third base drills, and obviously people kind of freaked out about it, but you know, it's not going to it has nothing to do with the MLB team. Marcelo is obviously going to be playing different positions there in Worcester. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see him as second, short, and third in Worcester to start 2024 or 2025, excuse me. Let's see here. I got to see Blake Wehunt throw a live BP as well, which Blake Wehunt is another one of those guys, just like Trenner, 6'7", 240. And he's got an absolutely strange head whack. Strange. You know, if you've ever seen him pitch in person, he is not even looking at the plate when he is throwing that ball. His head is looking straight down when he's throwing it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please Google it. I mean, I had him on the podcast. He explained why he does it. I can't go into detail on it. You got to hear it from him himself. But it's incredible to watch a 6'7", 240 guy with his type of delivery, looking straight down when he's throwing the ball to the plate. So if you're not familiar with Blake Wehunt and his game, he got promoted twice last year. He started in Salem, ended in Portland. So yeah, high on Blake Wehunt as well. High on a lot of guys. Apologize for that. Connolly early. Now's the time of the show to talk about Connolly early. Heard a lot of things around from development staff, pitching coaches, and the org. Connolly early is going to be a guy in 2025. I watched him have his probably the best start I saw live last year in New Hampshire. His stuff is good. He's got some swing and miss stuff now. He's a lefty. I'm hearing his ceiling could be a number 3 MLB starter, if he can get up there. But Connolly Early's name has been thrown out quite a bit by a lot of guys internally. And I think Connolly is going to be possibly scratching AAA by the end of the summer. I don't see any world where he's not in AAA by the end of July if he keeps doing what he's doing. He finished the year in AA. He got some starts in there. Like I said, he had one of his best starts of his career there in New Hampshire towards the end of the year. Connolly Early, he is, I have a little more info on that. Actually, this is a good time to say it now. He, at some point this spring, he has gotten up to 95 to 97 in one of these bullpen outings, or if it was like a live BP, whatever it was. I wasn't there for it, but I've if he's sitting 95, 97 this early in the spring, watch out. It's going to be the year at Connolly Early. I'll talk about more about him at the end of the show. But I also, speaking of a guy that can throw the ball pretty hard, got to see a David Salem live BP, and it is a must watch. From throwing 99 to 100 in games all season to adding in some nasty off-speed pitches. David Salem's a guy that obviously he's one of the top prospects in the system pitching wise, but he's must watch. And, he's obviously going to be coming into the season as a starter again. And I know people want him to be a closer one day, but we'll see. I still obviously pretty high on him being a starter. Going through the list, our favorite Australian, Adam Bates. He's trying to get that velo up. He was a young, lanky guy when he signed out of Australia. He's now sitting 94. He's trying to get up to 95. Thinks that'll get him up to Salem to start the year. So that's good news on that front with our favorite Australian prospect in the system. Austin Ehrlicher, one of the first draft and follow guys in the MLB. He's a couple weeks behind, but he's healthy otherwise. And that's important because he's dealt with some injuries his entire career. So looking forward to him staying healthy. Drew Gerhard had the flu all week. Bless his heart. He wasn't there all week. So Noah Dean is somebody I have to talk about here. He's got red hair. I got red hair. I was battling the sun all week. I mean, it was 80 degrees. I wasn't ready for it. It was pretty cold back home. So I was putting on the sunscreen. I was trying to cover some of these areas that he covered. Noah Dean sees me putting on sunscreen. He walks up and he's like, "That's disgusting." And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I get it. We're both redhead. I hate it too. My mom used to dump the whole bottle on me. Absolutely hate it." He's allergic to sunscreen. So try to find a redhead out there that's allergic to sunscreen and tell me how that goes when they have to spend, a few months down in Florida every year and playing baseball outside in the summer. Not a good ideal situation for us redheads. So sleeves are his best friend, but yeah, allergic to sunscreen. I don't know. I just had to throw that one in there. All right. So next day, I got a Miguel Bleis sighting. Obviously this is key. Miguel Bleis is a guy that needs to have a big rebound year. He was I think he was a top 5 prospect in the Red Sox system for a bit before having a shoulder injury in a season a couple of seasons ago. We haven't truly seen him return to form yet. So 2025, hopefully, is the year of Miguel Bleis, but freak athlete. I mean, he's built like a tank. So I'm going to talk about another guy that's built like a tank in a bit here. And I got to see Franklin Arias take BP as well. And it looked like a big leaguer BP. I had never seen Franklin Arias in person. Obviously, he was down in the FCL and then got up to Salem, but I'd never seen him in person, and I now understand why. Just seeing him take a BP, I'm like, this guy looks like he's been in AAA at least for the last couple seasons. But young guy, Franklin Arias, one of the top prospects in the Red Sox org, and obviously excited to see what he does in 25 with all the rankings behind him. All right. So next up on my list here, I have hmm, I want Hunter Dobbins. That's the next guy I'm going to talk about here. I watched this guy do long toss for a little bit, right? Just trying to see how he like preps his just preps for he was supposed to be throwing a live that day and ended up raining. So he either had to throw it in the bullpen or somewhere else. I didn't get to see it, but he was warming up, launching a football. And when I say launching, it looked impressive. Like this guy looks like he's played QB, which to my no surprise, he was the quarterback on his high school football team, and he was the kicker, by the way. So I am going to be looking for some kicking videos of Hunter Dobbins here. But this guy can just launch a football. Um, Impressive show that he put on, and I would never tell him that because it would probably get to his head. But that was entertaining to watch. Let's see here. Obviously, we got some decent news on Zach Penrod, but at the time, he was pretty beat up about it, and the concern level is high. But didn't his elbow obviously was a big area of concern. Just turns out there was no structural damage, but he will be taking some time off, and obviously, we wish Zach nothing but the best. He's a great guy. I just had him on the show a couple weeks ago, so please go watch that one if you haven't. I talked to him for like 25 minutes about just what he did this offseason, everything he's been doing to get in the spot he's in now. And it hurts me that he's, just kind of, taking that way he did from indie ball to here, and, an injury is going to knock him out like that. So not too happy about that, but happy there's no TJ involved as of right now. Let's see here. Johan Fran Garcia, obviously the catcher that had his season end early in 2024. He was in full catching gear all week. He was full catching gear all week, working out with all the other catchers. Didn't see him on the field per se, but he was catching bullpens, doing a lot of work with all the catchers out there. So that is an encouraging sign after a knee injury took him out last year. Mikey Romero put on an absolute show when I was watching his BP, and I did get a message that he was doing that because he saw me recording. So thank you, Mikey. Shout out to you. Let's see here. Luis Perales. It was kind of cool seeing him out there doing PFPs with all the other pitchers. I know that doesn't really require pitching or doing anything with your elbow like intensely, but it just was, it was still cool seeing Luis Perales out there, after having TJ last year and, kind of doing his thing on the mound. And last but not least, one of the last things I saw for the week, and then I'll kind of go into like a little recap and just maybe some miscellaneous things, but Peyton Tolley throwing a live BP, which I found fascinating. Peyton Tolley, second round pick, obviously in 24. He's the highest rated lefty in the Red Sox minor league system. I'm excited. He didn't debut last year. I want to see how he does once games roll around. Should be fun to watch him. And some miscellaneous notes I have just to kind of like wrap up the week here. Obviously I put out some, some pretty sad news, I would say. Some injury news, pitcher Matt Duffy had a really good 2024 down in Salem. He has a full tear of his UCL, and he's having surgery on March 5th here in Arlington, Texas. And he'll obviously miss the 2025 season and hopefully return mid-26. And 2024 draft pick Cole Tolbert has a UCL tear, and he'll be having Tommy John surgery the exact same day in the exact same place. So he will not be coming back until mid-26, hopefully. And then one last note I have that I did end up tweeting this out. Christopher Troy threw his first live BP of the year on Friday. I just left right before he did, so I missed out on it. He was sitting 94, 95. He was topping out at 96. And he feels confident and optimistic that he's going to be sitting 97 plus once the season returns, which is a fantastic sign because he's a guy that, we didn't really see the velocity there towards the end of the season. And, he was working on some things. So I don't know. I just I want to see better things out of Christopher Troy, and obviously hopefully a guy that gets up to AAA. But yeah, thank you guys for kind of sitting with me while I went through my day by day down there. I guess some quick thoughts to kind of wrap up here just on the whole experience itself. I would highly recommend going to spring training. Just if you're into the minor leagues like I am, it's one of those things where you can get up close and personal with all the guys in the system. They're literally walking through all where the public is. And most of the public doesn't really recognize them. They're not wearing, they're not the big leaguers. They don't have the big league jerseys on. They're wearing like the shirts with the number and name on the back, but they're just walking through the crowds. And obviously some little kids will run up. There are people that do recognize them, but for the most part, if you're a minor league guy, the backfields are your place to go. Everybody kind of flocks to the major league side for good reason. But I would highly, highly, highly recommend, just going, watching the guys on the backfields. It's, they're the guys that will be up there eventually. Obviously, you look at the Red Sox major league team now. You got guys like Jaron Duran, Ceddanne Rafaela. You got, just even Tanner Houck, like Cutter Crawford, guys like that. Like they were on the backfields at one point. Like those guys were in the position of every other guy just talked about on the backfield. So I couldn't recommend it enough. And I think that if you're itching for baseball and you want to get away from the cold up in New England, it's perfect time to get down to Fort Myers. Some ending thoughts here. Like I said earlier in the show, Connolly Early's name was popping up quite a bit, and he really did get up to 97 this spring. I think Connolly Early is going to be one of the best pitching prospects in the system by the end of the season. So that's a guy that if I were you, I would start paying attention to a little more. He's obviously going to start the year in Double-A. Pay attention to Connolly Early. He is going to be a guy in the Red Sox system. As long as he's not traded, he's going to be up in Worcester at the end of the year, and he's going to be pushing for a spot. So I don't know. I didn't really know what to talk about by myself for 36 minutes. So if you're still listening to this, I appreciate you. Please leave me a comment, something, DM me, whatever it is, and be like, wish you would have talked about this. Then I'll talk about it in the next episode. I should have Dan DeLucia, Worcester Red Sox pitching coach, on the next episode. And I can ask him questions if you want me to about certain guys, or if you have anything you want me to try to talk about, get information on, I'd be more than willing. But if you made it this far, I appreciate everything. And I'll be back with a couple episodes this week. So thank you for tuning in.